Okay, oh man, it's cold. Yeah, well, I'm not wearing a parka right now, so winter has just been starting to cool down here in, Canada. I'm pretty close to the border. I'm not like, it's not like snow all year round, like up in the territories, or even north of my province. Let's see. Oh yeah, I was going to talk about I and the self. I had an interesting exchange with a user on one of Gary's videos. He was telling me that, well, it's kind of like building off of what Gary was saying that I responded to. He said that he was not so complaining about, more just like driving a point that, it's not I. He was talking to Piro, that it's not the I that's doing these things, it's the brain. And I know his point wasn't obsessing about I versus brain, but it was more about another point, and about how, which I did get after a few minutes, that it was more about him, kind of like asserting that these changes in behavior aren't these things that come out of the blue. Kind of like, in a video that I recently put on UW, that's pretty old. I was talking about how like paths need to be worn down before they can be easily walked across. Someone, like Gary said, someone can't just out of the blue say, okay, like I want to live like this, or I don't like myself, this aspect of myself, I want to be a genius piano player, or I want to be a person with this attitude, more assertive or more courageous or whatever. You can't just make that decision. You can make the decision to try, and you can make the decision to work on it, but you do have to work on it. And I think that was the point that he was driving across, as well as more also advancing the determinism, which is a very interesting thing that I do want to get myself into, like discussions about it. And I guess this is a very, very lax start in terms of that venture. Like I said in one of my comments, I'm going to make a video about this, but I'm only going to start by responding to the whole I versus brain thing, and at a linguistic angle, starting with something that Fred said. I'll resume later. But yeah, it's like I can't get myself into whole like gigantic conversation in a before and after school walk and talk. So I'm just going to start it slowly with one topic that which like usual will be blown into like a 10-minute plus video. Okay, so assuming I have a minute to, I guess, no, I've already done my preface, to do an introduction to my topic. So I'm entertained by, right now, currently, generally, by Fred's / conference reports. Not recent, well I guess it's kind of recent, it's relatively recent. Kind of before the whole UW thing started up, he was talking about the problems of the English language, and maybe just language in generally, because I'm confident it was in reference to the whole free will debate, which was going on. The most recent free will debate was kind of like stirring up again. It's been going on like forever on YouTube. I'm sure it's an interesting topic. And while it was kind of like growing up its more recent fire, Fred put in a word about how he just thinks the language that we have right now is to blame, maybe to blame for the difficulties that we have in this discussion, and it's just a language that is not good enough for this debate. And so he was saying that my train. I'll have to continue this later. Alright, so this is the school locker. On my way to Cal class, but I'm desperate to finish my introduction before that starts. Fred was talking about how we're just ill-equipped language-wise for this discussion, for this contemplation, not even for this argument. I guess even thinking on our own about this subject with too much, being too influenced by our own vocabulary, our limited vocabulary, our limited language, and even trying to extend that into even our metaphors run the risk of being too limited. So I think Fred was saying that I think at the same time that we need to go into metaphor if we're going to try to be talking about freedom, which Corey says it has different layers, and I guess I'll get into why that is. So I think an example of the problematic language that Fred says that we have is just this whole the I / brain / self / mind. And really just the expressions that come out of it, the grammar surrounding it, the vocabulary that's produced by it. And so I guess that's it for my introduction. I guess I can elaborate on how I thought about this. So my first comment was, can't we identify our brain and the programs it downloads and runs as ourselves? I don't see the difference between saying, I make my life more palatable, and the processes my brain runs make my life more palatable. Then A but not antisocial says, my brain still assumes a distinction between the brain and I. There's only brain. Okay, so then I said, what I mean is that to me there is no distinction. Brain is I. My brain is the brain telling the vocal system to talk about itself. In the end, my only plea is to minimize the word games by clearly defining our language. Not that I don't appreciate alternatives in wording and metaphor. They give us a different way to think about the same things. Okay, so yeah. So then I call myself a metaphor. So Gary, I know you're well versed in clever, not so clever, however amusing plays on personal nouns and usernames. So if you'd like to take metaphor, feel free to do so. It's I feel clever with that one. It's kind of corny, but whatever. Okay, so so yeah, so I said I was going to make that video, which I'm doing now. So yeah, so there's something to be said now. I've kind of since I've started the video, I've kind of turned back on my. Well, I mean, obviously, I still hope that we can, make, clearly define our language so that we can have like a shared conversation rather than one guy talking and only like 10% of his ideas really being digested by the other person, and some of them being misinterpreted and some of them just like going under the radar or over the radar, or something that's just uninterpretable or unappreciable by the other person. So yeah, of course there's still that hope, but now that I'm thinking in terms of Fred's comment about how just our language isn't suited for these kinds of conversations. I guess we will profit. We can profit on really just talking about these words and how they're affecting the conversation. So which is something that I'd like to do right now. So right here, A but not antisocial. I'm going to reintroduce his comment. My brain still assumes a distinction between the brain and I. There is only brain. So yeah, so my comment, I guess I can make more sense of it. So like my brain is the brain telling the vocal system to talk about itself. So yeah, so already there you see some trouble there. Our language is limited. I definitely seem to experience that firsthand when I'm talking to others or even making a video where I'm trying to put my ideas into words, and sometimes a lot of the times it doesn't work as well as it could. And on the rare occasions I find it impossible to really embody an idea so that it can be not objectively understood, generally understood, in the general way that people interpret words. Because really, I do experience that a lot when I'm talking with other people. Like, I find that half the time that I'm in an argument with another person, we do find differences, but it seems that like half the time, most of what we're arguing about is really just a misunderstanding of each other's position, because one person's using one set of metaphors, or they're using one way of wording their thoughts, and the other person might even be saying the exact same thing, except the way that they use their language is so different that to each other it seems that they're in like complete disagreement, but they're not really. So yeah, so this whole language thing is a problem. So that's it for the introduction. Slightly edited because of kind of like wasted attempts, and I will start the talking about the paradoxes of I, and hopefully a day down the line talk about the paradoxes of free will, because I do think that they're just the concept of having an argument about determinism versus free will is misguided in and of itself, and is definitely partially due to the language surrounding it. Probably not completely surrounding, because there's whole biology and psychology surrounding the concept of a self being able to have a large amount of liberty to make decisions, which isn't exactly true. Under certain frames of reference, the idea can at least make sense to a person and have its usefulness. And if one wants to reject the notion of a free will, which I think I'm ready to, can at least embrace just straight will or responsibility. You're not free in any way that the classic position of free will is, but just a will or a notion of responsibility it does exist at a certain level. And I'll get into that in another video. Right now, I'm really more concerned in addressing the I, me, brain thing. Okay, I'm getting back to calculus class now. So just look at the problematic language there. How do I talk about myself? I can talk about my leg, my eye, my arm. My feelings, my memory, my brain, my eyes, my mouth, my heart, my emotions, my experiences. I'm thirsty. So with all this talk of minds and brains and emotions, etc., where do I come in all of this? Where am I in this weird possessive description of myself? I mean, it's almost as if, like, the language we use, it's almost as if, like, we're denoting ourselves as some kind of faceless, qualityless containers that just like, where we dump in brain and arm and emotions and history and past and memory and, you know, social connections and whatever. But it's I don't know what kind of mistake to call it, but it's definitely a mistake. It's a mistake in terms of language, and either that mistake in language leads to a mistake in self-identity, or the mistake in self-identity precedes the language and, you know, forms it. Or, you know what? It's probably both. It's probably different factors. Different factors throughout human history that came to, you know, define the different elements that have people defining the self. You know, whether that be biology, language, society. Ice. Okay, but the reality is that you know, when you say my brain, like I said, it sounds like there's this like ghost figure in the background saying that, you know, look, this is my brain. Like, it's like there's a ghost hand that's coming out of nowhere and is presenting my mind, and you know, its mind and its thoughts. But you know, we know that the ghost is in the machine. The ghost is the machine. If you cut a person's arm off, they become a different person. If you take away a piece of someone's brain, they become an even a radically different person. You know, it's not even just brain. Like, brain isn't equivalent with eye. You know, because the brain has a you know, column in your back, a whole bunch of nerves integral to yourself. It goes out and it, you know, stems nerves into your whole body in order to give a sense of ownership and control of that body to your brain. And it's not even as though the brain is like a mind of its own, interfacing with and piloting a giant robot. Like, it's not. We don't have a little man inside of our head, you know, pulling the levers like a couple of users have said. Probably, you know, Fred is probably one of them. But there's no mind up there that's like pulling all the levers. Because we have, first of all, the sense of self is spread out throughout the whole body, and emotionally it's the same thing. The emotions that every sensation that we feel is like it's like a, I don't know, like, I'm gonna be entering into like such like weird meandering abstract language right now because I'm not so confident about what I'm saying. But it's like there's this loop that's going on, and like I've read about this before though, so I'm trying to draw from that using whatever language I can use. So we have like hand hits pole, okay, and that feeling like comes back up through the muscles, and then I've read that like the muscles like release, like there's these glands, and that they release like a chemical or whatever that in response to me hitting the pole, and then that chemical results in the experiencing of whatever, some kind of, not really pain, but just like some like a force against my hand. And then it's just like my whole body is just like sending out signals and receiving signals, and all the while I'm experiencing it as though I just hit the pole. Like I feel like you know, I'm in my hand. And that's the thing, I am my hand. I am my hand. I am my emotions. Then we get into this whole weird thing where this problem where we have a sense of history and our body and the processes in our head and everything, all that, it has a history. It's gone through things before and it will go through things after. The present moment. So I am not only my body, whatever. I don't just stop at the skin. I extend into two directions of time. And there's a whole history there, which made me what I am right now. And anyway, there's two people watching outside of the park. There are things that, there's a whole history of events that made me what I am right now. And I'm not just talking about, well, of course, like we perceive that as, you know, memory information. But I think it goes beyond just the subjective experience of history. Like there's like objectively there's like these things that happened and factors that went into, you know, forming even the unconscious self, and you know, the conditions around which that self is existing, and etc. But if you look at that, if you think about that, you even have to extend it to. Well, now this is where we have to talk about levels now, like Professor Anton was saying, where we have. Well, he was talking about will, but right now I'm talking about the self. But you know, I think that we can draw a parallel with will, which you know I'm eager to get to in some distant time. I'm going to make a video about that. You see, so very often when I declare that I'm going to make a video about something, like presumably it never gets done. But like I don't know, I'm thinking that like it will get done, you know, ridiculously. For a far time from now. Like I was still supposed to continue that whole subject in response to Bike Messenger about signs and art. So that too, I'd really like to get to that. It's just like it's such a large subject, and I have to go back to my video and just absorb all the different things I talked about and said. But back to this subject. So there is. Oh yeah, so we were talking about history. Then you can also extend that another level to my environment, my everyday life, the things I interact with, my room, because I have to, that's also a whole loop that's going on with my environment, because you know, when I'm in my room, I'm thinking different things, you know, based off of experiences and whatever, and then I change my room. I move something from here to there. You know, not because I'm doing interior decorating, but because, you know, I have a use for it. Or maybe I am moving something around for various reasons, because I need to use something, or just like, I feel like, you know, my mental environment, like needs, like my mental sanity needs like this frame to be like at a 90-degree angle with the floor. And it can't be crooked. So I'm just doing various things. I'm going on my computer. And then that in turn feedbacks back to me, and then something in my neurons change, and I do another action, and so, you know, just like there's like this whole interaction with the muscles and the glands and my nerves and going into a feedback loop. It's the same thing with my surroundings, and it's the same thing with my friends and family. So my family and my friends, are they a part of me? Maybe are they just another level of me? Are they a less part of me to a lesser extent? Is this like some weird gradation that goes out? Because, you know, I can affect my like room to a certain extent. I can you know, not to use, like, I don't mean to manipulate in like this cold manipulating way, but I can control to a certain extent what I do with my friends. and they do too. But then like there's my society. My society is also another part of me, to a lesser extent. Or I'm a part of the society. What is it? Am I a part of the society, or is the society part of? I don't know. This is where our language just gets just so complicated and confusing, and our notions of self just break down. And that's the thing. What's the pattern here? The pattern is the same with the tree and the forest. Do you see the tree, or do you see the forest? Or do you see the park? What's the park composed of? Is the park just the space? Is that the park? If you remove the trees, is that still the park, or is that a different park? But like, the park, is the park like the ground with the trees, with the whatever this is, the playground thingy, with the snow? When the snow goes away, it's going to be the same park. Or is this not a park? Is this just a tree, and then a playground, and then a separate ground, and then a fence? Is the fence part of the park? I think so. I mean, the fence is kind of containing the park. And like, does the fence separate the park from over there, or is this all just one gigantic city? And is the city just part of? Is the city just not there? Is it just a country? Is it just a part of the world? When we're looking at a machine, is it just a machine as a whole, or is it just a bunch of different parts working together? That's the whole thing. It's like, what is this whole elaboration about what I am? And our abstractions, our categories, what do they have in common? They're abstractions. But that's the thing. Am I just an abstraction? And when you think about it, you have this immediate sense of self. Like, you feel like you exist. And it's something kind of undeniable. Like I do exist in some way, but like, when you really get down to it and think about who you are in the way that I kind of am, but it goes way beyond that. Just the past 5 minutes of my rambling, it goes beyond that. But when you sit down to it, you realize that it just becomes so complicated and convoluted that just your identity just doesn't really make much literal sense. It's and I had a thought, what statement can I use to just kind of like highlight this problem? And I remember, something that Gary had a problem with. It's a metaphor I kind of had a fancy for, and it's when Corey said that we are the universe waking up unto itself. Now I came up with my own statement, kind of like to rival that, or to counter that, or to, accompany that, or whatever. And what I'm going to say is that we are the universe suffering from a case of phantom limb, probably accompanied by schizophrenia. Now let me explain. Now, because someone with a phantom limb just swears that they have something that's not there. They have a it's the sensation of like, my foot is there and it hurts, but the foot isn't there, but it still hurts, and you still feel. And like where schizophrenia comes in, it's like the foot is there and it has its own personality and it's asserting itself to you, and it's telling you, I exist. You need to accept my presence, and that false, that self-asserting ghost personality. This personality is just it. Like, it's almost as though it has the will. It's almost as though this like fabricated personality has the will to survive, because a schizophrenic person, like, these personalities, they come to you. It's like, if you accept that they don't exist, it's almost as though like they bother you even more. And I'm not a psychiatrist, so maybe this is just a bunch of baloney. But that's the impression that I'm getting. So it's like I'm a self. It's like I'm a self asserting abstraction of the universe. It's like the universe, like part of the universe, like so the segment. It's like a segment of the universe, dirt or whatever you want to call it. Just through the mush and through the time and the process in which it came into existence. Formed a biological pattern through which the universe could make an abstraction that asserted itself, and that's what we ice. That's what we are. And but we still remain an abstraction. It's an abstraction that is very bizarrely aware of itself. But to what degree, that abstraction, do not know. Like, I can't pin myself down as a single thing, and that's really what abstractions are all about. They aren't real things. The only real thing is just the entirety of the universe. But I don't know. This is so strange. It's like I'm starting to wonder. I'm starting to think that Fred was right. That just our brains are not equipped to have that feeling of comprehension, or perhaps even just comprehend, even through metaphor and through analogies. Because, for one thing, I don't feel like I've landed on an answer. I don't feel that I understand what I am, even accepting that I'm just an abstraction. That's an abstraction, a physical abstraction made by the universe, produced, through a process. It's not like, through any identifiable sense of volition, but a self-asserting abstraction made by the universe. And because it's an abstraction, like I can accept that that I'm an abstraction, but what does that even mean? I don't know what that means. And so I don't know. I've made a point, and even then, I don't even feel like I've come to like. Not only do I not have the feeling of understanding, I don't even feel like I've come upon something that can replace the feeling of understanding. Like when someone makes an analogy to understand to understand something without having the knowledge of understanding in and of itself. I don't have any of this feeling of understanding. So my hands are getting cold. I'll leave it at that. And maybe I'll finish this. I'll do a closing inside in my room. If I get any afterthoughts. So on a finishing note, to get back to the language issue. The word issue of the problematic word issue of I in the grammar, vocabulary and language is that perhaps instead of thinking of the brain here as my brain, I should be saying the brain of me, so that it sounds like inclusive, like it's a part of who I am, instead of saying it's something that belongs to me, which would be some weird ghost figure that touches everything that's a part of whoever that person is. So you can say the feet of me, because they constitute me, the brain of me, the emotions of me, the history of me, the processes of me, are doing whatever. They're doing let's say all of that stuff. They're doing the me thing. They're doing I. They're doing the abstraction, the self-abstraction, the self-producing, self-asserting abstraction of the universe.